everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. My guest today is Michelle Vanderneut, Education Coordinator for the Wolf Sanctuary of PA. Located in Lidditz, the Wolf Sanctuary offers refuge to gray wolves and wolf dogs. They are devoted to assuring the highest quality of care and enrichment for the over 50 wolves currently at the sanctuary. Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad we were finally able to connect. We've been working on trying to get together for the last 2 months. So I'm
Yes,
so glad we were able to get it done, and I'm so much appreciate you coming on.
yes, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about the Wolf Sanctuary and how it got started and the role that you play there?
Sure. So we've been here since 1980. The sanctuary was founded by Bill and Barbara Darlington, basically out of a love of wolves. They had been caring for wolves and wolf dogs for a while. Many years. And then in the 1980s in Pennsylvania, the laws changed where in order to care for gray wolves and wolf dogs, you needed proper permits and from the USDA and the federal or the state game commission. And they went ahead and got in compliance. In fact, their enclosures went above and beyond what was the bare minimum. They made sure to have lots of ample space and shelters and everything for their animals. And then they started to get contacted to take in more animals as rescues. So basically, other people might not have been in compliance. Their animals were getting confiscated and needed a home, and they were able to find a home here at the sanctuary. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we remain dedicated in our mission, taking in rescued gray wolves and wolf dogs in need of a home.
How did you get involved in the sanctuary? That's quite a place to call your work.
It is, yes. I really enjoy it. I've been here for 13 years. Years and years ago, I heard about it through one of our full moon fundraisers, where we have a bonfire and usually some live music. And I visited the sanctuary as a guest at the time, and I just fell in love with it. So I started to volunteer, and there was a need for a staff member at the time to do a little bit more. And I've been here ever since.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, what do you do as the education coordinator? What does that mean?
So, as education coordinator, I do a lot with outreach, trying to make sure to communicate a proper message about wolves. I help with kind of what messages are expressed through our tour program, information about gray wolf conservation, as well as information about our wolves here. I work on our website and social media as well. But having been here this long and the fact that we're a nonprofit, we all wear many hats. So I also help directly with animal care. I also help in the office. I help with our gift shop. I do a little of everything.
That was actually going to be my next question is how big is the sanctuary? I know on the website right now it says over 50 wolves.
Yeah.
So how big is the sanctuary? And then what does your staff look like? Is it volunteer? Is it all staff? How does that work? Because it's not going to be, there's obviously a vetting process with any animal rescue, but I imagine you guys take it to the next level when it comes to caring and directly interacting with the wolves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we have a pretty small staff team. We have about 10 people. And then there's a couple people that are specifically dedicated towards animal care. They've been here for years. They've built up experience hands-on with the animals. But I will say whenever we take in a new rescue, we're all learning at the same level to get to know that individual because they're all different. And we are supported by a little bit of a larger volunteer crew. They actually really help with our tour program. Our tour guides are volunteers. They do the gift shop during tours, the register, they park cars, do crowd control. And then some of them assist with animal care as well. They assist the staff. So it's a combined effort between our small staff and small volunteer crew, and everybody works really hard and works for the same goal.
What does a tour at the Wolf Sanctuary look like? What does that mean for people?
So when people arrive, we have a couple different kinds of tours, but they're always accompanied by a guide to interpret, to talk about the wolves. Our guides are really knowledgeable. Some of them have been here for 20 years. Some of them have been here for just 1 or 2 years. And they know all of the wolves by name. They know all their personalities, their stories, as well as facts and information about gray wolf biology, behavior. So it's really cool to come to see the wolves in person and get information from that guide, where you're not just seeing a wolf in their natural habitat, which is cool enough. You also are kind of learning, well, why are they rolling? Why are they scent marking? Why are they howling? You kind of learn more about wolves. And in that way, we're really hoping to kind of change people's minds about them, because they've really had a bad rap for a long time. So dispelling some of the common myths about them as well. And I should mention, some of our tours are what we call self-guided, where they're bigger events and people can kind of wander through, but the guides are still present. So you can approach the guide yourself rather than being led through by a guide.
So, how do you guys come across the rescues that you get? I imagine that they come in from a couple of different avenues.
Yes, absolutely. So unfortunately, we get rescue requests regularly. And the reality of the situation is we really can't accept all of them. We do have a network that we're connected to across the country, where we have someone we can contact that can send out a blast, like an info blast, to see if anybody has space. If we get a rescue request and we can't take them, that is an option. But we really try to advise people against having them as pets, because that is the primary way that we get rescues, is people trying to have them as pets. It is illegal in Pennsylvania and many surrounding states. It's also just not a good idea. They have a completely different level of needs, level of care that are needed in household or captive settings. And I think people really aren't prepared for that when they take in a puppy or they rescue one. They just don't quite understand the different needs that wolves and wolf dogs have. So they end up either surrendering them to a sanctuary like us, or they get confiscated because of illegal ownership or abuse.
Tell me about some of those different needs. What makes them different than a standard domesticated dog?
One of the main reasons that we end up getting rescues, it's not aggression or nastiness or something like that, or they're dangerous. And I'm not trying to say that they're not, dominant predators and you have to be careful with them. But it's usually actually separation anxiety that kicks in. Wolves are pack animals. They're social creatures. And when they live in a household setting, people become a part of their pack. And I think that human lifestyles often don't permit the 24/7 demands that are required of an animal like that, the needs to be around them. Wolves howl to communicate. So that's how they know where their pack is at all times. They scent mark to communicate so they can know where their territory is at all times. So if you leave the house for something like a vacation, or even short term, like errands or a work schedule, they simply feel abandoned because they don't know where their pack is. And that results in negative behaviors. It can result in them being very destructive in the household. They're very strong and powerful. So it can result in them escaping. And in states where it's illegal, that could cause them to get confiscated. And it could just result in anxiety. We've had rescues that their owners didn't know what else to do because they had such severe anxiety, separation anxiety. When they left, they would like shake for hours after, just really be distraught. And people really, I think that's one of the things people don't realize when they take in a wolf or wolf dog, that it's so much more extreme than dogs, all of those behaviors, because it's instinctual for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been domesticating dogs for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those things that make dogs such great companions in our homes, we've been building on and building on and building on and building on. And if you're just taking an animal that's one generation from being in the wild, it's not going to have those same tendencies. It's not going to have that same adaptability to being indoors.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they are. Their instinct is to be in the wild. They have adaptations that help them to survive in the wild. And in a household setting, it's really not usually a happy situation.
Not at all. So tell me about gray wolves specifically. I mean, I don't know much about wolves,
Okay.
but I would imagine that there's a couple of different types. So why the focus on gray wolves specifically for the sanctuary?
Yeah. So In North America, there's two species of wolves. There's gray wolves and red wolves. Red wolves are pretty endangered. I believe there's a reintroduction program in North Carolina. It's been struggling a bit, but I think they've had some successful generations of pups, but they're still very endangered, the species down there. And I think it's just more common for people to, in captivity, illegally or in states where it's legal, to breed wolves with dogs, gray wolves with dogs. And so we do have full wolves here, gray wolves, but we also have some wolf dogs as well. And a wolf dog is an animal that had a recent ancestor that was a wolf and a recent ancestor that was a dog. So they have traits of both. So we actually have we have one wolf dog who has floppy ears like a black lab, but the rest of his body is very wolf-like, which is very funny. And he has the personality that makes him really not good in a household. Again, that separation anxiety, those behaviors that just have allowed him to adapt in a wild environment, made him a really not a good candidate to be in a house. But he's thriving here. He's been here for, I think 11 years. And he has a new pack mate now. His pack mate passed away, unfortunately, last year to cancer. But he's doing great in his like outdoor home, his outdoor environment, where he can have the freedom to be who he wants to be. And his pack mate stays with him 24/7. So, yeah. So gray wolves are just kind of the reason that we have gray wolves here is really just because that tends to be what people end up having as pets. And then since we are a wolf sanctuary, we do actually get rescue requests from other zoos and animal care facilities that aren't able to care for them. We do take them in from those kinds of facilities as well.
Do you guys have any intentionality around them reproducing as far as like wanting them to reproduce or not wanting them to reproduce? What does that look like?
Yeah, so years and years ago, when the sanctuary was started, there were permits to breed, and they did allow breeding in a few of the rescue packs. So there were some pups born here, and there was like a couple of families that grew up here. We called them the Big Pack and Smokey's Pack. They were quite large families. But about 15 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer, we made the decision to stop breeding, and everybody was spayed or neutered at the time, and any incoming rescues were spayed or neutered, unless there was a health risk or a reason that we shouldn't be neutering them, in which case we would pair them with someone that was already spayed or neutered. And we made that decision because we were getting so many calls for rescue, and we just wanted to be able to provide homes for animals that already existed. If we continued to have pups, we would have had to make new enclosures to separate them from to prevent breeding. And so rather than focus on that, we really wanted to focus on providing homes for animals in need. And we are not a rehabilitation facility, so everyone lives out their lives here as well.
Well, so yeah, and that was sort of my thought process in asking that question.
Yeah.
As I was thinking, if you guys are in a position where you are trying to repopulate with the red wolves down in North Carolina, then having them breed is not necessarily going to be an ideal situation. So but then also too, it's like, what do you spay or neuter what is essentially a wild animal? So I'm glad I asked that question because that was so interesting. And then, oh, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, you're not a rehab facility.
Correct.
So I'm so interested because I imagine that you do get calls about an injured wolf or a sick wolf or, one that gets caught in a trap or has mange or something like that. And so like, how do you then direct them to a specific rehab facility, or do you say, okay, we're going to take this animal on, but it is going to live out its life here? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we actually don't really often get any requests like that. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. So one of them is there are no more wild wolves in Pennsylvania, sadly. So the closest wild population is probably Michigan, Minnesota, Great Lakes region. And then there are also population out west, around Yellowstone National Park where they were reintroduced. So Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and then also like Oregon, Washington, and they were recently reintroduced to Colorado as well. So unfortunately, yes, our largest canine in Pennsylvania in the wild now are coyotes.
Coyotes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are not currently set up to take other wildlife besides wolves and wolf dogs at our facility. So if we did get a call, we have gotten calls about injured wildlife, and we will direct those to local rescue rehabilitation facilities for local wildlife that might be able to help a coyote or a fox or a deer or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do that, but we don't. And then I think this isn't really based on anything other than my knowledge of wolf behavior from being around them for so long, but I do suspect and wonder if it's uncommon to get calls about an injured wolf, because wolves are so used to hiding their ailments. They want to be as strong as they can for as long as they can. So by the time that they're injured, or by the time that they're showing signs where humans are getting involved to try to help them, I feel like it's too late for them.
Right.
I just feel like we've seen it here so much. They will hide their symptoms, their ailments, like for so long. They will just not show us,
Yeah.
and they can't communicate. So we've gotten really, really good at watching subtle body language cues where we know their personality, we know their behavior, and if they're acting funny at all, we intervene right away to get them medical attention, and then in doing so, we're able to help them if they have an issue. But they're really good at hiding it. So I do have that
Dogs
suspicion
do
about
that
wild
too.
wolves too. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, dogs do that too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not uncommon to like hear a story about a friend or a family member losing a dog, and they're like, yeah, all of a sudden,
Didn't show any
crazy
signs.
symptoms, 48 hours, the dog is gone. And then
Yeah.
the vet was like, yeah, this has probably been brewing for years.
Yes.
So it's a survival
It
instinct,
is
because the second
survival.
you
Yes.
show you're weak,
Yeah.
then you're up for grabs. Your territory is up for
Yeah,
grabs.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I just feel like they hide it so much in the wild that they're not often getting, and they avoid people. They're shy. They avoid people as much as they can, just like any other wild animal. So, so it's uncommon to get a call about a wild injured animal, wolf often. But I think it would be more common in states where they are more prevalent.
So wolves, it's used to be native to Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
but are
Mhm.
now extinct in Pennsylvania, it
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Locally
And so,
extirpated. Yep.
yeah, say that term again? What was that term you just used?
Extirpated would be if an animal is
Okay.
no longer exists in an area where it once existed, rather than
Okay.
extinct would be like off the planet.
Okay.
So they'd be locally extirpated. Yep.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I've never heard that term before. Thank you.
Sure.
Um, how long has that been the case for gray wolves?
Yeah, I would say probably about 100 years, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
The late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a pretty concerted effort to basically remove or extirpate wolves from the lower 48 United States. They were completely wiped out through a series of habitat destruction, logging, clearing forests, and habitat. Also overhunting of both them and their prey. So they would overhunt buffalo, bison, deer, elk, to, the point where then wolves were more likely to come into human civilization areas going after livestock because their natural prey was gone, their habitat was gone. And then just direct extermination. There was a fear of wolves, and people really thought that the best thing for civilization is everyone was moving out west was to get rid of them. So they were actually wiped out of all the 48 United States except a small portion of northern Minnesota, and they remained in Alaska. So, and that was by the early 1900s. So opinions started to change about them slowly over time. And in the 1970s, they were placed on the endangered species list once the act was created. And then in 1995, they were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park. And that's when they started to rebound and recover.
That is one of my favorite nature stories, is the reintroduction of wolves in Yellowstone. I love that story. What do you know about that? I'd love for you to share that with us.
Yeah. Oh, it's really amazing. It really showed them as a keystone species. they are really vital to the ecosystem, is basically what that means. They found that when wolves were removed from the Yellowstone ecosystem for about 100 years, that the elk, their primary prey, was overpopulating, which meant the ecosystem was out of balance. Their keystone species, the gray wolf, was removed and everything was out of balance, which meant a whole bunch of species were negatively impacted. So elk were overbrowsing the vegetation, they were overpopulating, and it just caused a cascade, a trophic cascade through the food web that negatively impacted all these species. So when wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995, it was an amazing success story because they didn't know if it would work. And the wolves took to the environment right away, pretty much, after they were reintroduced, which was amazing. And once they started to, they not only decreased the elk population, they also did something called the ecology of fear, which is they got the elk more afraid of lingering in open spaces and overbrowsing the open vegetation and the plains. And they pushed them more to the forest edge habitat, which is their natural space, which meant stream banks stopped eroding because willow and aspen trees started growing back, and beaver came back to the area. And they're also a keystone species, so they changed the environment. And they even found that wolves positively benefited bears because bears feed on the carcasses left behind after wolves are done. So grizzly bears benefited, and songbirds benefited because there was more habitat, shrubs, and different things that they lived in and fed on. And just all of these species they started to find really benefited from the wolves' return to the ecosystem. So we always like to tell that story on our tours because it's such a really important story about wolves, and a positive story about their impact on the environment.
And if I'm not mistaken, there was, I think, correct me on this, I know you will, but there were two separate packs that were brought in from Canada to start that process.
Yep.
And they were put in different spots, and then they tracked them to see kind of where their territories were. And it's just such a fascinating story. I love the idea that humans finally figured out how important having these natural animals, even though you don't understand them or you may fear them or you may see them as violent or whatever, are so incredibly important for the area where we live.
Yeah, super amazing story, and you're absolutely right. Two packs were, or two spaces were brought down where they put the wolves in. One was in Idaho, I think, and it was called a hard release. So they basically just released them into the environment in Idaho. And then within Yellowstone National Park, they did a soft release. So they released them in, they called it the Rose Creek Pen, I think. They actually made an enclosure very similar to the enclosures we have, actually. And they allowed them to adjust to the environment within that small area before they then release them into the greater open ecosystem. So yeah, super interesting story, two different approaches, but both were successful, and they're thriving now. So
I love that story. That's such a great story. And that actually brings me to one of my other questions. How do you guys manage that pack dynamic? And do you get involved in managing that pack dynamic, right? And because I that's like that balance that we were talking about with them breeding or not breeding is like they're still wild animals. Do we really want to get involved here? But we also need to make sure we protect them physically. Like, what does that look like for you guys, especially when you introduce a new rescue into the sanctuary?
Yeah, so we're very careful with it. So they obviously can't tell us what they want. They can't fill out a dating profile or something. But we do our best. So basically, before we even take in a rescue, when we're evaluating these rescue requests, a lot of factors go into it. So one of them is, do we have the resources? Do we have the space? But also, do we have the resources, the staff time to take on a new rescue? Do we have time for the veterinary care? Do we have funding to take on a new rescue? One of the biggest factors is, do we have anyone to pair them with? Are they going to fit with somebody here so that they can have a happy life? Because we want to make sure that they are social and they need a companion. So that is one of the key factors that we take into consideration. We look at personality type, like how they act, their behaviors. We have a whole questionnaire we have people fill out. Sometimes we like to see video to see how they're interacting, and also their history. Who have they interacted with before? Was it a younger animal, an older animal, more of like a dog-like animal, or more of like wolves specifically? Anyway, all of that goes into play. And then we really get to know the personalities of all the animals here. In doing so, we really hope, right now, we mostly have pairs. So we're not breeding, so we don't have a typical pack in the wild tends to be a family unit. It tends to be a breeding pair that has one or several generations of offspring. And then as the offspring grow up, if they would choose to leave the pack and start their own family, they would have to leave and find a mate elsewhere. Otherwise, they might stay and help raise the next generation, be the aunts and uncles and stuff like that. Here, since we're not breeding, the pack sizes tend to be smaller. The more personalities we get in the mix that they didn't grow up together, it's harder to introduce them and have like a cohesive pack. So we do have one pack of 3, but everybody else are pairs. And then when we pair them, we think about their personality and their history and who might go well together. All of the packs are separated by a runway. Packs are super territorial. It's the case in the wild as well. So we try to decrease that tension. And when we do an introduction, we decrease that space. We try to see how they act along a single fence. And then if it's going well, then we do play dates and see how they interact together for a couple hours at a time. And then if that's going well, they spend their first night together and then they can have breakfast in the morning. And that's always a little of a stressful time to see how they're going to cooperate with breakfast. And then we just continue observing them because a couple could be together for a while and then break up. So we do facilitate if they need to separate, then we will separate them. And unfortunately, we did have a breakup a few months ago. We have one of the pair is now hopefully being introduced to another animal, and we're actively seeking ideas for who someone may be here, or if we want to keep an eye out for a rescue for this other animal as well. So
That's so interesting that, I guess you think of animals as like once they've accepted each other, that's good forever, but that's not always the case.
No, unfortunately, yeah. They can change just like us, I guess, in relationships. They can change their minds.
Yeah. So how much space are you able to give each pack, as far as their ability to have, their own space and their own territory?
Sure. So I would say the enclosure sizes range quite a bit. Some of them might be more like a quarter acre. Some might be larger, more like an acre to an acre and a half. And we don't want the enclosure spaces to be like many acres because that will impact our care. We won't be able to care for them as well. So the younger animals have more like a quarter acre paddock area the older animals, the seniors, who might not be able to get around as well. We need to do a little bit more intensive care. They might be on some medications. And then the younger, more fit animals, they might have like an acre and a half to 2 acres of natural woodland where they can go. They have ample space to hide, run around, get away from each other if they want to, or just be active and play. So all of their territories are natural woodland. And then we do outfit them with like shelters, tubs, ponds, and sometimes we have cement structures like these tubes that they can go in, which are nice and cool in the summertime when the heat is really hot. So it's all natural territories, but about quarter acre to 2 acres, I guess.
Wow, so you guys are on a pretty large piece of property up there near Lidditz.
Yeah, I would say I think that the wolves occupy a little over 40 acres, and then the sanctuary itself is 80 to 100 acres, something like that. So we have some additional space where we might have like our parking area for events and stuff, and then there's some protected land around the sanctuary as well.
Wow, that's that's such a cool place to work. And
yeah.
Speaking of how much interaction do you really have physically with the wolves, right? Because they're still wild animals. You want to respect them. They're going to respect you, but to your point, you have to be able to feed them. You have to be able to medically take care of them.
Yeah.
So how much interaction do you actually have with the wolves?
It's all case by case and it's on their level. So that's what I mean when we get a new rescue in, we're all getting to know them on an individual basis. Some of them are extremely social with everybody. They're very social animals. Maybe they grew up with people and had positive interactions. Wolves are instinctively very shy of humans. It's self-preservation thing. So they are trying to protect themselves. So they're instinctively shy of people. So interacting with people, with humans, is a learned behavior. So the ones that tend to be more social are ones who were raised in an environment that had a positive human interaction from a very early age, like maybe even when they were very little pups, like right after they were born. Others are much more typical of a gray wolf, and they're very, very shy. So they actually prefer zero interaction. They will kind of shy away from us. Our ideal situation is to get them all at least comfortable with human presence. So us being around, they'll take medications through the fence, through a hot dog or something. They'll take their breakfast from us, really nice. But then if we go into their enclosure to do maintenance, they'll kind of stay away. The more social ones, then we have a different level of caring for them. We do encourage that interaction. We are very hands-on with them. That really makes vet care a whole lot easier, because then we could do veterinary exams while they're fully awake. We don't have to sedate them for them. So we have animals on the full range, and all of our relationships are different. So there's some animals that I can interact with that others can't. There's other animals that I've never been able to interact with that other caretakers here can. It's always it's a different relationship with each animal, with each person. And we try to kind of balance that and work with it. And we also are very aware of their behaviors and body language, because they can't use words to communicate. So we want to make sure that we're safe when we're going in, that we know the cues if they're upset or if they're comfortable or if they're happy and things like that.
Wow, it's so cool. It's so interesting to just think that I don't know. It's such on a different level than dogs,
It is.
obviously. It's completely different, but there are aspects of what you're saying that are so, similar,
Yep.
especially for somebody like myself who gets new dogs kind of all the time in that
Mm-hmm.
foster setting.
Yeah.
You don't know what that relationship is going to look like, and
Yes.
you got to sort of feel it out, and you got to make sure everybody's safe, and yeah, it's really that's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So, this I think is a really good time to talk about, because you guys are doing such incredible work at the Wolf Sanctuary, and you, let people come in, and you do tours, and you do events, and you need support too. So I think this is a really great time to introduce people to your website, introduce some people to some wolves, and talk about our foster spotlight today, which is going to be the Adopt a Wolf program. Now, for everybody that is following along on YouTube, you're going to see me share the Wolf Sanctuary of Pennsylvania website. And for those that are listening, I will, as always, put the link in the show notes for you to browse on your lunch break at work. But what I really like about Michelle is that when I told her that for Foster Spotlight, I wanted to do Adopt a Wolf, and she was very quick to tell me that it's symbolic. So everybody out there, you can't actually take one of these wolves with you. You do have to be okay with a certificate and updates probably on the wolf.
Yes, exactly.
So this is the bios of all the wolves that you guys currently have at the sanctuary, and they are just such absolutely stunning creatures. So if you get a chance, if you're in the Lidditz area and you get a chance to visit the Wolf Sanctuary of Pennsylvania, make sure you stop by and just see some of these beautiful animals. I imagine that one of the things that's a shock for a lot of people is just how large they are compared to a standard dog.
They're huge,
aren't they?
They really are quite big. Yeah. Although I will say, since we do take wolves and wolf dogs, we have a variety of size ranges. So some of our wolf dogs tend to be smaller, although some of our wolf dogs are quite large, depending on the breeds that they're mixed with. And then the full gray wolves are very large. Like you get up close and, their paw print is like the size of your hand, and they, they do come up quite high to like your hip. And it's funny because I've been here a long time, and I kind of get used to them, in comparison to each other. So like when I'm walking around, I'm like, oh, this one's so small because compared to their neighbor, they're so small. And then we'll, have to sedate them for vet care or something. And then I'm like right on top of them, and I'm like, oh, that I always forget they're like a big animal. They're actually 80 pounds. I just feel like they're small because their neighbor is 120 pounds. So like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as far as your adoption program, so what I've done is I've navigated to the Adopt a Wolf site.
Hmm.
Why don't you tell me what comes along with that program when someone does choose to adopt a wolf?
Sure. So it's an annual support. So it's just a one-time support. And then if you choose, you can renew your adoption voluntarily the following year. We send out a reminder, but we don't do it automatically. You just, if you choose to. A nice package comes with a personalized certificate. It has either your name on it or the recipient's name. If it's great gifts, especially like around the holidays and everything, or for birthdays and things. You can choose whichever wolf, and that wolf will be associated on the certificate. A nice professional 4x6 photo comes. You get a bio with like the history of that animal, and then some general fact sheets and information about wolves and their body language and stuff like that comes with it. And one of the coolest features of the Adopt a Wolf is some of our wolves are more shy and they're not necessarily featured on the public tour when you come to visit. But if you're an adoptive parent and you come for a public tour, you can go for a special 15-minute visit to go see that wolf. It's still outside the fences, but you get kind of a private, more experience where you get a chance to see your wolf, even if they weren't on the public tour that day.
Oh, that's cool. So if you are interested, it looks like it's only $55 for the
Mhm.
year of participating in the program, which for many people is a really nice, affordable gift, especially if you have a wolf or a dog or, lover in your life, or if you're somebody like me who doesn't like to collect a lot of stuff
Yeah.
and loves like gesture type gifts. This would be such a great gift for anybody in your life that you're not sure, or maybe they're an animal lover.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a really awesome gift, and it's always good to know that you're supporting a good cause too, because those, that adoption fund really helps support, their veterinary care, their ongoing daily needs. All of them get preventative medications like, Bravecto, HeartGuard, things like that. And so all that stuff is expensive ongoing. Vet care
Yeah,
alone is super expensive here, so the adoption programs are a great way to show support, and then you get a special package and you can come visit your wolf.
that's awesome. Do you guys have a vet on staff?
We have a traveling zoo vet. She comes out once a month to do the monthly checkups. And then we have two other vets that we work with that can be on call for emergencies. They may come out on site to help us with something if there's an emergency, or there's a relatively local vet that we might take the animal to there. Yeah.
Oh, nice. It's good to have a number of different resources.
Yes.
So how can, as the person who does all the social media, how can the people that are listening or interested connect with you guys?
Sure. So, of course, our website, wolfsanctuarypa.org, which you already showed, we have a contact us page on there. So if anybody had questions, they could reach out on that contact us page. We do have a Facebook. It's just Wolf Sanctuary of PA. You can find us on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, PA_wolf. And I think we're on TikTok as well, although I don't remember the TikTok handle. That's something else. We're more on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, contacting us through our website is a great way to reach out as well.
That's awesome. I like to ask everybody in animal welfare this question because it's always interesting to me. What is the one thing that if you could share any piece of knowledge or that you wish the public knew when it comes to the work that you do, what is the one thing that you really like to share with as many people as you can?
Yeah, I think the thing for me is always it's kind of twofold. So it has to do with how wolves are often misunderstood, and I feel that they're misunderstood in two directions. So on the one hand, they're feared. Movies and fairy tales make them out to be the bad guy, the villain. They're always attacking people or something. And that's just not how they are. We already talked about their keystone species. They're really important to the environment, and they're super shy of people. They want to stay away. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to be near you in the wild. So they're really not fairy tale monsters. But on the flip side, they're also not pets. They don't make good household pets. Game of Thrones is not, it's a fictional story. They they don't do well in a household setting because they do have those wild instincts. And so I think finding a way to respect them for what they are, for who they are, finding the fact that they're a keystone species, super cool, and understanding that they have these special needs that other animals, domesticated animals, don't have the same level of needs, that wolves have this other level of needs. Understanding that and respecting that, I think, is really important for people to understand.
An animal doesn't have to interact with us in order to have value. It's
100%.
like, you know what I mean? Like, leave them the hell alone.
Yes.
Don't go
Yes.
after them because you have some personification of
Yeah.
how they are evil or nasty, or that you're scared of them. And then also don't flip to that other side of you're so not frightened by them that you decide you want to bring them into their home. Just leave them alone.
Yes, you're 100% right. Yep. Yeah, they do not need to interact with people to have value. Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, I am so grateful for our conversation today. As I was telling you in some of the email exchanges, I have family that lives out in Eastern Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah.
So I can promise you we will be coming for a tour because I think my nieces and nephews would love to come check out the wolf sanctuary.
Oh, great. Yes. Yes. And you can check out our tour page or reach out to me and schedule something for sure. Yes.
I will. Yeah, that'll be awesome. I really look forward to it. So thank you again for your time today. I do just want to remind everyone listening to the podcast that you can find the podcast at the Foster Files Podcast on Instagram. If there's somebody that you think that I should be talking to, just like Michelle, please email me at the fosterfilespodcast@gmail. And again, Michelle, thank you so much for your time today. I know we've had a lot of back and forth trying to get this on the calendar.
We
So
made
I'm so
it.
glad we were able to do it. And I just want to remind everybody to be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals.
Thank you.